Christopher Nolan is not your conventional filmmaker. Critics and audience members assess his films differently, looking past flaws that they probably wouldn't accept from other filmmakers. But the thing is, these flaws aren't small or trivial at all. For years, Nolan's narrative style has involved too much exposition. And that's not usually a storytelling attribute that people like, because it can get boring being told rather than being shown what is going on. In fact, too much exposition might cause audiences to disengage with the story instead. And now, more recently, another filmmaking or stylistic flaw has become clear: inaudible dialogue. As Nolan's films have gotten bigger over time, he has focused more on the layering of sounds throughout his films.
One structure won't compromise the other.
But it's gotten to the point where a lot of dialogue is incoherent, particularly in a non-IMAX cinema. And interestingly enough, these two major flaws are more noticeable because of each other. The amount of exposition is more noticeable when you can't hear exactly what the characters are saying. And the inaudible dialogue is more noticeable because audiences need to be able to understand what characters are saying to understand what's going on. And yet, despite these criticisms, Nolan's films are still embraced by most film lovers. Even his most ambitious films, and often most problematic films, have passionate fans. So what is it about Nolan's films that capture our attention and help us look past some of the less than perfect elements of his films? I think it all comes down to one word: misdirection. Our brains are constantly interpreting and processing a lot of information, working hard to quickly provide us with a heavily edited version of what's in front of us. It does this efficiently by creating shortcuts so that we don't get overwhelmed by the amount of detail around us, only giving us the information that's absolutely necessary. But sometimes our brain gets it wrong and misrepresents the information in our edited version, causing us to misunderstand what's actually in front of us. Nolan plays with this part of our brain, deliberately misdirecting our attention like a magician. His films are like well-written riddles that are rife with clues and phrases that are easily misunderstood, teasing our brains and causing us to rethink what's real and what isn't real. And naturally, this kind of storytelling intrigues us, because human beings are naturally curious, and we always want to know the answer. Nolan's misdirection happens in multiple forms. From visual, like the scene in Inception, where Arthur is training Ariadne on how to build environments and dreams and create closed loops. They're climbing what looks to be an infinite staircase, but a change of perspective shows that there is actually a gap in the stairs, even if from the bird's eye view it looks like a closed loop. Misdirection also happens in Nolan's plots, like in The Prestige, when it's revealed how the magic trick works at the end of the film. The rules of the worlds that Nolan creates, expressed through both visual and plot mechanics, misdirects our attention all the time. Take Tenet, where Nolan introduces the concept of time inversion and shows us how it works visually by having people run and fight in reverse. This challenges our ability to interpret what is possible in the world he's built, confusing our brain on how to interpret what is in present or inverted time. But this level of complexity is why Nolan has so much exposition in his films. Because Nolan has to say clearly, or sometimes not so clearly, the rules at play in his stories. Exposition is Nolan's way of setting up his magic trick, to give us all the information we need to accurately answer the riddle within the film, while also misdirecting us on what to focus on, challenging us so that we don't get it right immediately. And more recently, as part of his magic trick, layering sound is perhaps yet another way for him to misdirect the audience, so that not all the rules are easily understood until they need to be. That's why I see Christopher Nolan as more of a puzzle maker than a filmmaker. His films aren't passive experiences where you sit back and just watch. The nature of Nolan's films cause you to be an active observer, putting your brain into overdrive to solve the visual and narrative puzzle in front of you. We've all experienced that immensely satisfying feeling you get when you solve a particularly difficult puzzle. Nolan's films similarly give you that feeling. That's why escape rooms are so popular. It's not only an entertaining activity, but also when you do figure out all the riddles and codes to decipher within the room, you feel so accomplished, which makes you feel really good about yourself. So yes, Nolan's stylistic exposition problem and inaudible dialogue can be super frustrating, but audiences are more forgiving of his flaws because that's part of the deal. To participate in solving the puzzle, you need to also patiently sit through the exposition to find out all of Nolan's clues. And perhaps you might not hear all the details, as an added challenge to further misdirect your attention to the things that might not matter in the puzzle. Just like the red herrings in a more difficult escape room. Either way, Oppenheimer definitely looks more straightforward than Tenet, but I still expect some of those stylistically Nolan flaws, or perhaps we should call them attributes, to still occur in the film. I'm definitely excited to watch Oppenheimer. How about you? And what do you think of Nolan's films, his style, and perhaps his flaws? Let me know in the comments. Thanks for watching, and subscribe for more spiels in the future.